here. Now, in April, DOJ abruptly terminated over 300 public safety grants that had already gone through a very rigorous and fair and apolitical application process with no explanation. This is funding to investigate and prosecute drug trafficking, to support foster care kids who experienced abuse or neglect, to expand access to forensic exams to prosecute violent crimes like sexual assault. These really senseless cancellations have already forced public safety organizations to cut employees and services. So I want to ask you, when you cut off the community-based violence intervention and prevention initiative funding, were you aware it is used to prevent and reduce violent crime?
Yeah, Senator, you weren't here for that, so I'm going to have to repeat myself. We have cut grants. I think we've cut 6%. But if we have cut a grant that you feel should not be cut, please reach out to me. I will personally look at it. We've turned multiple grants back on. Okay. We have an appeal process. But if you want to come to me directly, I would be happy to sit down with you and look at that and help you.
I'm happy. I appreciate
Again, we're doing everything we can.
Okay, but look.
Welcome back to Wealth Decode Daily. Today's hearing proves once again that when chaos replaces law and order, it's not just politics at stake, it's our money, our safety, and our democracy. Senator Patty Murray just grilled the Attorney General on Trump's DOJ slashing critical grants for crime prevention, women's safety, and public accountability. And the answer she got will leave you shaking your head. Before we break it all down, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a breakdown of how Washington's choices hit your wallet.
We're joined by the Vice Chairman of the full committee. Senator Murray is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Bondi, we are in a deeply alarming moment where law and order is being replaced by chaos and corruption and really whatever Trump wants. And your department's independence and its capacity to do its job have eroded before our eyes. We have seen respected career officials who've been fired for doing their job. Thousands more are being pushed out with your buyouts and the threat of mass firings, and entire divisions are being eliminated, and grants have been canceled illegally. So I have questions about how and why those decisions are being made, and importantly, whether you're adequately resourcing DOJ to do its job. But before I turn to my questions, I do want to raise my alarm about the troubling pattern of trampling basic rights. Detainees, including U.S. citizens, being shipped overseas without any due process. Elected officials are detained for conducting oversight, and a U.S. senator gets tackled to the ground for asking questions at a press conference. This is not the country I know or the values I believe in, and I hope that colleagues on both sides of the aisle will agree with that. Now, to the questions. Yesterday, and I know that Senator Van Hollen raised this issue, a former DOJ attorney filed a protected whistleblower complaint accusing Deputy AG Emil Beauvais and senior DOJ leadership of defying court orders, including through, quote, lack of candor, deliberate delay, and disinformation, unquote. The complaint also accuses this administration of firing the whistleblower for, quote, telling the truth to the court. These allegations are deeply concerning. Now, I know you said that you can't discuss the case, but can you confirm that you agree that this administration should follow court orders?
We will follow court orders, Senator. The entire administration will follow court orders. The problem arises in the district courts. All these district courts throughout the country are tying our hands. And here's how we will follow them when we get to the United Supreme Court.
I need to ask
we're winning.
A number of questions.
And so, yes, we're following the orders of the court.
Let me ask my questions. Can you confirm you will not allow any conduct like what is alleged to continue at the DOJ?
I'm not going to talk about anything that's alleged. What I will talk about with you, hold on, you asked me a question and I get to answer it. What you asked me, alleged conduct that's part of a pending whistleblower lawsuit that was filed on the eve prior to Emil Beauvais' hearing today.
I'm not asking about that
suspicious. Hold on, let me keep going. I would run through a wall for Emil Beauvais and Todd Blanche.
Like to continue with my questions. I have very limited time. Thank you. I just want you to confirm for this you will not allow conduct like that at the DOJ. Yes or no?
I will always support and defend Emil Bovee, and I will defend Todd Blanche. They are two of the finest people I know and two
I
of
was
the
asking
ethical
about the
people
contact.
I know.
Let me keep going here. Now, in April, DOJ abruptly terminated over 300 public safety grants that had already gone through a very rigorous and fair and apolitical application process with no explanation. This is funding to investigate and prosecute drug trafficking, to support foster care kids who experienced abuse or neglect, to expand access to forensic exams to prosecute violent crimes like sexual assault. These really senseless cancellations have already forced public safety organizations to cut employees and services. So when I want to ask you, when you cut off the community-based violence intervention and prevention initiative funding, were you aware it is used to prevent and reduce violent crime?
Yeah, Senator, you weren't here for that, so I'm going to have to repeat myself. We have cut grants. I think we've cut 6%. But if we have cut a grant that you feel should not be cut, please reach out to me. I will personally look at it. We've turned multiple grants back on. Okay. We have an appeal process. But if you want to come to me directly, I would be happy to sit down with you and look at that and help you.
I'm happy. I appreciate that.
Again, we're doing everything we can.
Okay, but let me just ask you, when you cut off the expanding access to sexual assault forensic examination grant, were you aware that that grant helps our authorities prosecute rape and sexual assault?
I have no idea about that specific grant you're talking about. That's why I said if you want to come sit down with me, I would never cut a grant intentionally that has anything to
those
do.
Recipients on the other end across the country.
Can you give me the details of that grant?
I can absolutely do that, and my staff will get that to you. But those are two critical ones that I just wanted to ask you about today.
Again, we've turned many grants back on, and we'll continue to. If you want to call me, and we can discuss them with you.
Okay, in your budget request, you propose consolidating the Office on Violence Against Women into the Office of Justice Programs. In 2002, Congress actually codified the office as a permanent, separate, and independent office to implement the Violence Against Women Act. We did that to make sure that violent crimes against women receive the necessary attention, expertise, and resources, and to give the office a strong, independent voice within the Justice Department and federal government. Now, your department wants to fade that into the OJP, which violates the intent of the law that we passed. It makes grant programs less effective, and it places a lot more barriers for victims and services they need. And I see that you're cutting the office's resources by about a third. So will you commit to us, the Appropriations Committee, to follow the law and maintain OVW as a separate grant entity?
I will follow the law, but I will not keep that as a separate grant entity. You and I can disagree all day long on what the law is.
Well,
that's being consolidated into the Office of Justice Programs.
So
I'm not going to cut, let me answer, I'm not going to cut anything that's going to hurt violence against women.
Not my question.
It will eliminate
just
duplicate.
For your information, Attorney General, in 2002, we codified the office as a permanent, separate, and independent office. So that you need to go back and take a look at that. I know my time is out, but I thank you very much for the time.
Senator Patty Murray's questioning of Attorney General Bondi wasn't just a back-and-forth exchange over grants and programs. It was a snapshot of where America finds itself under an administration more focused on loyalty to Trump than loyalty to the rule of law. And that tension matters deeply for our money, our safety, and our democracy. Let's unpack what just happened. Murray opens by painting the picture. Law and order, the bedrock of a functioning economy and democracy, is being replaced by chaos and corruption. That's not hyperbole. We've seen career DOJ officials fired for simply doing their jobs, whistleblowers retaliated against, and critical public safety grants suddenly canceled. Think about that. Grants that were already vetted, approved, and promised to communities to fight drug trafficking, prosecute sexual assault, and protect foster kids all suddenly yanked away. This is not just about politics. It's about the very real impact on people's lives. If a local police department loses funding for forensic exams, that means sexual assault survivors might not get the evidence they need collected in time. If foster programs lose money, abused kids are left more vulnerable. If violence prevention initiatives are cut, neighborhoods already struggling with crime see those struggles worsen. So when Murray asks Bondi directly if she was aware these grants were being cut, the Attorney General hedges. She claims only 6% of grants were cut, says there's an appeal process, and offers to sit down with Murray to review specific grants. That may sound bureaucratic, but the real takeaway is this: she couldn't even acknowledge the importance of those programs. She says, "I have no idea about that specific grant." And that's chilling. Because if the top law enforcement officer in the country doesn't know or doesn't care about rape kits and violence prevention programs, what message does that send? Then there's the bigger structural change Murray highlights: the DOJ's push to consolidate the Office on Violence Against Women into the Office of Justice Programs. Congress had specifically codified OVW in 2002 to make sure it stayed separate, visible, and strong. Why? Because violence against women is too often minimized or ignored, and the creation of a dedicated office ensured accountability, expertise, and resources. Bondi's answer? She says she'll follow the law, but in the same breath insists she won't keep OVW separate. She frames it as a consolidation, but in plain terms, it's dismantling a safeguard Congress built to protect women and survivors of violence. That's not just bad governance, it's dangerous governance. And here's where we need to connect the dots to the financial picture. Budgets are moral documents. Every dollar reflects a choice about what we value. When DOJ cuts programs that fight drug trafficking or support sexual assault victims while simultaneously defending political allies like Amal Bouv and Todd Blanche, it tells us where this administration's priorities lie. It's not in public safety. It's not in protecting survivors. It's in protecting Trump and his loyalists. Senator Murray tries repeatedly to pin Bondi down with simple yes or no questions. Will you allow this kind of conduct at DOJ? Will you maintain OVW as Congress intended? Instead of straight answers, we hear evasions and personal defenses. I will always support Amal Bouv and Todd Blanche. They are the finest people I know. That's not accountability, that's loyalty politics. For anyone watching from a financial lens, this matters because trust in institutions directly shapes our economy. If the DOJ can't be trusted to apply laws fairly, investors worry. If whistleblowers are silenced, corruption grows unchecked. If grants vanish unpredictably, nonprofits and state programs can't budget or plan. And when citizens lose faith in fairness, they stop engaging, they stop investing, they stop building. This is where Democrats like Murray are right to sound the alarm. She's not just fighting over line items in a budget. She's fighting over the integrity of the justice system, which underpins the very economy we rely on. And let's be clear, an economy without fairness is not sustainable. It's not free. It's cronyism. Republicans often claim to be the party of law and order, but what Murray exposes is that under Trump, law and order has become code for whatever serves him. That's not conservative. That's authoritarian. And in authoritarian systems, economies eventually collapse because corruption becomes the rule, not the exception. Think about it from your wallet's perspective. When a community loses grants for crime prevention, businesses are less likely to invest there. When DOJ undermines its own independence, global markets see America as unstable. When women can't access protections against violence, the workforce suffers, healthcare costs rise, and economic productivity declines. Every one of these so-called grant cuts has ripple effects that reach your pocketbook. Murray's frustration was clear. She reminded Bondi and the American people that OVW was written into law as a permanent office, not an optional program. She pressed on whistleblower retaliation, on detainees being denied due process, on elected officials being detained simply for asking questions. These are not fringe issues. They cut to the heart of democratic accountability. And if DOJ is bending the knee to Trump instead of enforcing the law, we all pay the price. Financial stability depends on rule of law. Without it, the wealthiest hoard resources, corruption expands, and ordinary people lose their shot at fairness. So what do? First, we hold leaders accountable, not just at election time, but every time hearings like this expose corruption and chaos. Second, we support lawmakers like Senator Murray who are willing to ask the hard questions, even when they get stonewalled. And third, we remember that when budgets are written, when grants are awarded or cut, those choices reflect real priorities. If the administration values loyalty to Trump over safety for women and children, that's a choice we must reject. The fight over DOJ grants may sound technical, but it's really a fight over whether government works for the people or for the powerful. Murray is on the right side of that fight, and as Democrats, we need to make sure her warnings don't go unheard. Because democracy is not self-sustaining. It requires accountability, transparency, and yes, funding for programs that protect the vulnerable. Cutting those programs while shielding Trump's allies is a recipe for corruption and collapse. The bottom line? Senator Murray just gave us a warning shot. If we don't fix this, we're on the path to losing not just trust in government, but the stability of our economy itself.